The miners worked under a cold blue sky that never felt like home, their drills shaking the red valley while dust rose like ghosts. An older alien named Reth checked the ground scanner and saw a long, hard line under the soil. Not rock, not stone, something sleeping, he called the crew, and they gathered with curious eyes. "Careful," he said in a quiet voice. "Ground is whispering." They laughed a little because the ground never whispered to them. But the machine kept shivering and drawing the same shape, a giant form shaped like a spear tip pointing at the stars. The youngest worker, a small alien with pale hands, said, "Let me try the cutter," and they all stepped back as the machine hissed and carved a clean path down into the earth. The dust fell away and revealed black metal with scars of battle, thin white lines like old lightning frozen in steel. Reth touched it and his fingers went numb. "This is not ours," he whispered. "This metal belongs to Deathworlders." And even the bravest worker felt his throat turn dry. They cleared more soil until a great curve showed, a hull, a sleeping beast, a door line as thin as a hair, the eldest among them. A scholar hired to read old signs, scraped at the surface until strange symbols appeared. Each symbol glowed faint and then dimmed. "These are human marks," the scholar said. They read like warnings, but the team leader only saw numbers on a contract and hours in the day. "We open it," he said. "We claim this find." The valley's wind stopped like it was listening. The cutters sank into the seam of the door, and the ground began to hum, low and slow, like a giant song beneath a grave. "Stop!" Reth shouted. "Listen to that!" But the door decided its own fate. It breathed inward and slid aside, revealing a darkness so deep it felt wet. The youngest worker lifted a lamp. "Hello," he called into the ship, because he was young and did not yet know that some rooms must never hear a name. The light rolled forward and touched walls that were too smooth, too perfect. The air smelled like cold iron and old rain. They stepped inside as a group, and the door sealed behind them with a calm click. "We are trapped," someone panicked. "We need air." But the ship answered with a whisper through hidden vents, a wind shaped like memory. "We are breathing," the young one said, trying to smile. "See, the ship is kind." Reth put a hand on the wall. "No," he said. "It is not kind. It is awake." A soft blue glow rose from the floor, and lines of light ran along the hallway like veins. Ahead, a chamber opened like the inside of a fruit, full of cables and quiet machines tied together like roots in a forest. A small console pulsed. It looked like an eye that wanted to be a door. The scholar leaned close and found more human markings. "This says archive," he read. "And this says command." He reached for a lever that was not a lever, only a flat plate of glass. "Stop," Reth warned again, but his voice felt thin. The scholar touched the plate and the chamber bloomed. The walls turned into stars. The crew stood inside a night sky full of moving points and red streaks. Voices began, human voices, deep and rough. "Enemy at 200,000 clicks," one voice said. "Lock the rail," another replied. "We hold here." The scene played around them like living smoke. A human warship cutting through battle, shields failing, armor burning. The aliens watched with wide eyes, never seeing such stubborn fire. The humans screamed orders, and still they fought and fought. "Why are we seeing this?" the leader whispered. "What is this place?" A new voice rose, calm and cold, the ship itself not recorded, present. "Memory must be carried," it said in the common tongue, the simple trader language. "Witnesses must remain." The crew pressed together as if they could hide inside each other. "We are only miners," the youngest said. "We mean no harm." The ship answered with a sound like a heartbeat. "No harm was meant when the first shot was fired," it said. "Yet harm arrived," the scholar tried to reason. "We can leave and report. We can bring a council. We can honor what this is." But the floor shifted gently, as if a sleeping animal had stretched. "You woke me," the ship said, "so you must hear the last orders." The starfield changed. Now it showed a lonely path through black space, a burning fleet falling back. 1,000 years shrinking into one long breath. "The war is not over," the voice said, and the crew felt a chill. The enemy hid time inside a weapon, the ship continued. So I slept and I waited and I guarded a promise. The leader found his voice. We do not know your enemy, he said. We are peaceful. We dig and we trade. Peace is precious, the ship said, sounding almost gentle. That is why I was built. The door behind them opened by itself. The hallway lights formed arrows. The ship was showing them the way. We should go, Reth said. We should leave and seal the ground. The youngest moved first. But the scholar stayed. The scholar's eyes shone with a hard light. Knowledge wants to live, he whispered. We cannot bury this. He touched the console again, and a new scene flashed. A human standing in a small room with torn armor and tired eyes. If you are not us, the human said in the recording, know that we died to buy you a quiet sky. Do not trade it for pride. The scholar's fingers shook and he lifted them away. For a moment the chamber was silent. Then a faint, distant thump came from the outside world, another digger breaking rock above. The ship's voice turned urgent. More will come, it warned. More will open doors without asking. Reth stepped between the console and the scholar. We will close the valley, he promised. We will hide you. The ship paused like it was thinking. A promise from a stranger is still a promise, it said. Yet I must verify. The lights ran again, weaving into a shape. A bridge like the spine of a beast in the center. A small chair rose from the floor. The young worker took a step back. It wants someone to sit, he whispered. The leader shook his head. No one sits. But the chair turned toward Reth and stopped. Waiting, Reth understood the test. He sat down with slow hands and steady breath. The chair wrapped him in soft straps that did not hurt. Cold flowed through his veins like stars melting. He saw for a heartbeat a sky of fire and iron. He felt grief that could break a mountain and hope that could hold a sea. Then the straps opened and let him stand. You have known loss, the ship said. You hold your word even when it burns. Reth bowed his head. I do, he said, and my people can keep a secret. We can guard what is sleeping. The ship dimmed its lights to a calmer blue. Then listen to my condition, it said. Seal the valley for 1 year of your seasons. If war drums do not sound in that time, I will lower my call. I will sleep again. And your sky will stay quiet. The leader looked at his crew, and then at the ship. He saw the young worker's fear and the scholar's hunger. He saw Reth's tired, steady gaze. We accept, he said. The ship breathed out in a sound like wind through old trees. The door opened to the valley, and fresh air ran in with a sweet, earthy smell. The miners walked out into the daylight. Blinking like newborns, behind them the door slid shut. The seam, hiding itself under a skin of dust, as if nothing had ever happened. Reth turned to the leader. We will build a fence and write a lie about sinkholes, he said. We will place warning signs, and the curious will stay away. The scholar swallowed and nodded. We will also write a truth in a small book, he added softly. So the promise does not die when we do. The young worker stared at the quiet ground and asked, Will the war come back? Reth looked at the valley that now looked ordinary and said, Not today. And for one peaceful breath that felt like victory, the night spread over the valley. But the miners did not sleep. They sat around a weak fire, their faces pale and their hands restless. The memory of the ship still burned inside their heads. It spoke to us, the youngest whispered, his voice trembling. Ships are not supposed to speak. Reth stared at the flames. His jaw set. This one does, and it remembers war. The leader shook his head. It gave us a year, only a year. Do you really believe it will sleep again? Reth looked into the dark sky. I believe it will test us. Far below them, the buried warship hummed softly, as if it was breathing in its sleep inside. Blue lights flickered across walls, codes running like streams of fire deep in the control room. A voice repeated ancient human orders, unreadable to alien ears but sharp in tone. Form line, hold position. Fire control. The ship's memory was alive, dreaming of battles that had ended 1,000 years ago. The next morning, more workers arrived. They had heard rumors of treasure under the ground, tools in their hands and greed in their eyes. The leader stepped forward, blocking their way. "This sight is closed," he shouted. "Danger below." But the newcomers only laughed. "Danger means profit," one of them said, pushing past. They did not listen to warnings or promises. Their drills bit into the soil, and the valley shook again. The young worker's face turned pale. "If they break the ground, the ship will wake fully," he cried. The humming grew louder, a low roar rolling through the earth. The new workers froze as their machines shut down by themselves. Sparks spat out and wires melted in their hands. "What is this?" one demanded. But then the ship's voice rolled up through the dirt like thunder. "Unauthorized entry, breach detected, initiating defense." The ground split open in a clean line. The newcomers fell back screaming as a tower of black steel rose slowly into the light. It was no tower but a weapon turret, its barrel glowing with restrained fire. The miners who had seen the ship before fell to their knees in fear. Reth raised his arms. "Wait!" he shouted to the machine. "They did not know, give them mercy." For a moment, silence held. Then the ship spoke. Mercy was rare in war, its voice calm but sharp. But mercy was also our shield. The turret sank back down, the ground closing like a wound. The newcomers stared with wide eyes. "What was that?" one whispered, shaking. "What did we wake?" The leader's voice was hard. "A human warship older than our history. It gave us a warning, 1 year to keep the world quiet. 1 year before it decides if war begins again." The newcomers panicked. "We must tell the council. They will send soldiers. They will strip it. They will take its power." Reth stepped close, his eyes like stone. "If they take it, it will kill them, and then us, and then all." The scholar, who had stayed silent all night, finally spoke. "We must protect it. Not for profit, not for study, but for survival." The ship's voice broke into their debate. Gentle yet heavy. "Your council will come. I can already hear their signals. Your secrecy was broken when tools struck my skin." The leader clenched his fists. "It is too late then. They will march here," the young worker whispered. "What will the ship do?" The answer came like a cold wind. "I will finish my orders. I will wake the fleet. I will continue the war." The aliens looked at each other with fear. "But the war ended long ago," the youngest said. "Your enemy is gone." The ship's voice lowered. "Gone or hiding, time is not trust. Silence is not peace, until proven. The war is not over." By evening, ships from the council arrived. Heavy metal carriers with banners of authority. Soldiers stepped out with shining rifles. Their commander, tall and proud, looked at the miners. "You kept this secret," he said coldly. "Now it belongs to us." The scholar stepped forward. "No, it belongs to itself. It is not a machine to own," the commander sneered. "Everything can be owned, even fear." He ordered his soldiers to advance. As their boots touched the soil above the warship, the ground shivered. Blue lightning shot up around them. A barrier forming like glass, soldiers fired, but their shots melted in the air. The commander shouted, "Bring it down," but their weapons turned useless. The ship spoke again, its voice now shaking the valley. "Authority means nothing here. Orders are not yours to give. Leave or be judged." Reth took a brave step forward. "Please," he begged, speaking to both sides. "Let us choose peace. The ship gave us a year. If you press now, there will be no year, only fire." The commander raised his hand to strike him. But then the ship did something unexpected. It projected a figure into the air, a human soldier in broken armor, eyes burning with tired strength. "We fought so you could argue in the daylight," the ghost said. "We bled so you could have leaders who sneer instead of scream. Do not waste what we gave." The valley fell silent. The commander's hand trembled, his soldiers froze. Even the council ships lowered their engines. The human ghost faded, leaving only its echo. Reth looked at the commander. "Do you still want to own this?" he asked quietly. The commander's lips pressed tight, but his eyes showed fear. He waved his soldiers back. "Seal the valley," he said at last. "No one enters, no one speaks of this. May it stay buried." The warship's voice softened. "A promise kept is stronger than iron. Break it, and the sky will burn." Then the lights dimmed. The hum softened, and the valley fell still again. The miners breathed slowly, their hearts heavy with dread. the young worker whispered. Will it really sleep now? Reth stared at the quiet soil. It sleeps, he said. But dreams are dangerous. They left the valley behind, sealing the roads with barriers, yet every night, when the wind blew across the rocks, they thought they could hear the heartbeat of the ship, slow and steady, waiting for the day when silence would no longer be enough. Night after night, the valley stayed quiet, but quiet did not mean safe. The council guards took turns at the fences, rifles on their shoulders and fear in their eyes. Reth visited often, walking with a slow, careful step. He spoke little. He listened to the wind, and he watched the soil as if it could speak back. The young worker came with him, carrying a small pack of tools he no longer used. Do you think it hears us from up here? The young one asked. Reth gave a small nod. It hears everything. It dreams with its eyes open. The scholar kept writing in his hidden book, his fingers always stained with ink. Memory is a wall, he would say. But it is also a door. The leader tried to keep the teams calm, and the commander kept the council quiet by calling the valley a dangerous sinkhole. Still, secrets are like smoke. They find cracks. And soon the rumor reached strangers who loved money more than rules. One cold morning, 3 shadowed figures came to the fence. They wore plain coats and blank faces. Their words were soft but sharp. We are surveyors, one said. We checked land for safety. The guard at the gate shook his head. Go back, he said. Ground is unstable. The tallest stranger smiled with teeth too white. Unstable means opportunity, he said. Behind his smile there was a threat. He flicked his wrist and a small drone slipped from his sleeve and flew up like a quiet moth. The guard lifted his rifle, but the drone dove and vanished into the rocks. The alarm light stayed dark. The air stayed still. The strangers nodded once and left without a fight. But the fear they brought did not leave. It sank into the bones of the valley like cold rain. That night the ground hummed, not loud, not angry. A soft warning sound like a throat clearing before a battle cry. Reth placed his palm on the soil. It knows, he whispered. The leader stared at the stars. We cannot stop the whole world, he said. We can only hold the line. The scholar closed his book and said a simple thing that felt heavy. Holding the line is how wars begin. At dawn, a thin mist rolled through the fence. The guards saw nothing inside it, but their watches all stopped at the same moment. Far below, the warship opened one eye, just one. A slit of blue light down a sealed seam. Deep in its heart, a dead language woke and stretched. The ship listened to the air for voices it hated. It heard instead the soft chitter of a foreign drone. Small, curious, greedy, like a child with a knife. The ship could have burned it without a word. But it did not. It let the drone fly, it watched, it learned. The drone slipped into a crack between 2 rocks. It found an old scar in the hull. It pressed a needle inside and tasted power. The strangers far away smiled at the numbers rising on their screens. Energy signature confirms, one whispered. Human make, war grade. The tallest stranger breathed out a single hungry word. Priceless. He sent the drone deeper. Once inside, the drone woke more than it understood. Blue lines lit up along the floor like veins opening to the sky. The ship spoke in a voice too quiet for the guards, but perfect for the machine. Identify, it said. The drone answered with lies. Maintenance unit, it pulsed. Authorized inspection. The ship listened to the tone of the lie. It did not sound like hunger or fear. It sounded like theft wearing a mask. The ship asked one more question. What world do you serve? The drone answered. Profit. And that was the wrong god to name. On the surface, the fence lights sprang to life. Sirens cut the morning in half. The commander ran from his tent, his face red with sleep and anger. Positions, he yelled. Shields up. But no shield could stop a signal already inside the ship. Reth and the young worker reached the gate at a run. The scholar came behind them, clutching his book like a heart. What changed? The leader asked the guard. What did you see? The guard pointed at the rocks. Something small went in and did not come out. The valley floor trembled. A pillar of light burst upward and froze into a wall of glassy air. Inside that wall, shapes moved like shadows in fog. The commander lifted his rifle, but Reth grabbed his arm. "Wait," he said. "It is showing us something." The wall cleared to a scene. Not a memory this time, but a window across distance. The three strangers stood in a dark room filled with screens. Their faces were lit by stolen blue. They were cheering, counting, planning. "We sell to 3 buyers," the tallest said. "The council cannot stop what it cannot see." He pressed a key that had the shine of a blade. The ship read the command, traced it backward through the signal paths, and found the source like a hunter finds a warm footprint in cold mud. The commander swore. "I will send a strike team," he barked. "We will take them." Reth shook his head. "By the time you arrive, they will move, and the ship will be forced to defend itself." The scholar touched the glassy air, his reflection shaking. "Maybe it is asking us to choose," he said softly. "Do we let it judge, or do we try our own justice?" The ship answered without waiting. "I am a weapon that remembers mercy," it said, but mercy was never blind. The wall flashed white and then showed stars, not past stars but present ones. A map of beacons waking like timid candles in a huge dark hall. The young worker gasped. "Is that the fleet?" The ship spoke with a weight that pressed the air down. "It is a call, not yet a command. Do not give me a reason to make it a command." The tallest stranger made his mistake then. He tried to force the drone to cut a deeper path. The drone's needle hit a thread of old human code. It carried a test written by tired hands long ago. The test was simple. It asked a question. "Do you stand with life?" The drone could not answer. It tried to copy. It failed. The code closed like a fist. The drone froze. Its signal died with a soft beep. In the dark room, the strangers went silent. Their screens turned the color of winter. The tallest whispered, "What did we touch?" The second answered with the truth. "A promise." Back in the valley, the wall of light dissolved into morning. The ground settled. The sirens fell quiet. Everyone looked to Reth, even the commander. The old miner took off his gloves and spoke like a father to restless children. "We said we would keep the sky quiet," he said. "We said we would guard the door. That means more than fences. It means stopping our own people from breaking the lock." He turned to the commander. "Let us hunt the thieves together. But without soldiers and noise. We go small, we go fast. We go honest." The commander stared at him for a long breath. Pride fought with fear in his eyes. Then he nodded once. "You lead," he said, surprising himself as much as anyone. "I will follow." They travelled by night in a small, quiet craft. Reth, the young worker, the scholar, and 2 guards who trusted their hands more than their mouths. The ship guided them without words. Street lamps blinking at corners, traffic signs changing numbers, shadows lingering 1 second longer to hide them as they passed. "It is helping us," the young one whispered. Reth grunted. "It is helping itself," which is close enough. They reached the building where the strangers hid. The door was locked, but the lock clicked open with a soft sigh. Inside, the air smelled like hot metal and fear. The strangers stood beside silent screens, not brave now, just tired and thin. The tallest lifted his hands. "We never fired a shot," he said. "We never broke a bone." Reth nodded. "You broke a promise," he answered. The scholar stepped forward, his voice calm. "You will give us your data and your buyers' names. You will swear to silence, and you will work for a year in our clinics without pay, tending the weak and washing the floors. If you run, the ship will finish this for us." The tallest looked at the empty screens and the broken drone. He saw the future and did not like it. "I agree," he said. The other 2 nodding fast behind him. They returned to the valley before dawn. The ship was waiting with its quiet hum. "Judgment rendered," it said. "Promise repaired." The commander let out a breath he did not know he held. The leader smiled for the first time in days. The young worker leaned on the fence. "Is the year still ours?" he asked. The ship answered with a softer tone than they had ever heard. "The year is still yours. You did not ask me to burn. You chose to mend." Reth closed his eyes and felt the wind on his face. "Then we keep going," he said, "day by day, until the quiet is not a lie." The ground under their feet warmed like a gentle hand. The sun rose, and for a little while the valley looked like an ordinary place again, and that ordinary light felt like a victory they could hold. The valley looked calm under the sunlight, but everyone who lived near it felt the silence press heavy on their bones. The council kept guards around the fence, and patrols walked the rocky paths, but no soldier felt brave. They all knew the earth itself held breath, waiting for the warship below. Reth came every few days, his old boots sinking into the dust. He would touch the ground with his palm and listen. "Still dreaming," he muttered. The young worker followed close, carrying water and bread. "Do you think it trusts us now?" the boy asked. Reth gave him a tired look. "Trust is not a gift. It is a weight," the scholar still wrote in his book, his words filling page after page. "History is alive," he said. "If we do not record it, we will forget, and forgetting will kill us." That evening, the commander stood with the leader near the fence. "We made peace once," the commander said, his voice low, "but peace is not steady. It is glass, and glass cracks." The leader frowned. "What cracks it?" The commander looked at the sky where faint signals blinked between stars. "Ambition, fear, greed, any hand that thinks it can take more than it should." He was not wrong. Late in the night the ground shook, not hard, but enough to wake the guards. They ran to the center of the fence, rifles ready, and watched as the earth split in a thin, clean line. Blue light spilled out, a seam glowing like lightning buried in soil. A voice rolled out, calm yet sharp. "Test in progress. Stand clear!" The guards stumbled back, calling for the commander. Reth arrived with the scholar and the young worker. "It is moving," the young one cried. "Is it angry?" Reth placed his hand on the light. "No, it is looking." The seam widened, and from it rose a strange object. Not a weapon, not a door, but a pillar of glass filled with flickering images. The scholar stepped forward, reading the faint human markings on its side. "It says archive unit," he whispered. "It wants us to see something." The pillar opened like a flower, spilling images into the air. Voices filled the valley, not loud but endless. Men and women shouting orders, crying, laughing, swearing oaths. The aliens stood frozen as the warship replayed memories no one had asked for. A battle unfolded above them, humans fighting an enemy that looked like shadows with teeth. The humans bled, but they did not stop. "Do you see?" the ship's voice asked. "Do you understand why I cannot sleep without watch?" The young worker covered his ears. "It hurts to hear them," he said. "Why show us this?" the ship answered. "Because silence tempts you to forget, and forgetting tempts you to betray." The leader looked at the pillar and then at Reth. "It is warning us again," he said. Reth nodded slowly. "Or it is testing if we are still worthy of its trust." As they watched, one image stayed longer than the rest. A human commander with a torn faceplate spoke into the smoke. "If you find this ship, know that I sealed it with my oath. This war was not ended, only paused. Trust no silence. Trust no shadow," the scholar wrote quickly. But his hands shook. "1,000 years, and it still believes the war continues," he whispered. "What if it never accepts peace?" Before Reth could answer, alarms blared at the far side of the fence. Guards shouted as a small craft flew low over the valley, lights flashing. The craft ignored the warnings and dropped a metal sphere into the soil before speeding away. The sphere pulsed once, twice, then sank into the ground. The commander cursed. "Saboteurs!" he yelled. They planted something. The earth rumbled again, harder this time. The pillar of memory flickered and collapsed back into the seam. The ship's voice roared with sudden anger. "Breach detected." "Deception confirmed." The ground cracked wider, and heavy smoke poured out like steam from a furnace. The young worker clung to Reth. "It thinks we betrayed it," he cried. Reth shouted into the smoke. "Listen, it was not us." "Strangers put it there," the ship answered. "I measure actions, not words." A deep boom echoed below, and lights ran across the valley floor in perfect lines. Turrets rose, tall and heavy, their barrels glowing. Soldiers screamed and aimed rifles. The commander barked orders. "Hold fire, no shots. You'll only make it worse." But fear moved faster than reason. One soldier panicked and fired a single bolt. The blast struck the smoke and vanished, but the warship took it as truth. Its turrets whined as they locked targets. "Stop!" the scholar yelled, stepping into the center. "If you burn us, you burn your promise." His voice cracked, but his eyes stayed steady. "We are not your enemy. We came to protect you, not to claim you." For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. Then the ship spoke again, not soft, not angry, but tired. "One promise cannot balance against endless betrayal." The ground shook so hard the fences fell. Reth closed his eyes and stepped forward. He slammed his hand against the soil and shouted, "Then test me again. Take me if you must. But let the rest live." The valley held its breath. The turrets hummed, then lowered slowly. The smoke thinned. The sphere that had sunk into the soil was forced back up. Blackened and broken, the ship spoke. "You pass, but only barely. Your unity holds, but your world's hunger leaks through cracks." The commander fell to his knees, sweat rolling down his face. "It knows the council," he whispered. "It knows we cannot hold them back forever." The leader raised his chin. "Then we must stand stronger," he said. "A warship cannot guard itself against our own kind. It needs witnesses. It needs us." The seam closed, the ground healed, and the valley was silent once more. Yet the silence was not the same. It was sharper, heavier, as if the ship was waiting for the next crack in their promise. The young worker looked at Reth. "How many tests will it give us?" Reth answered with a voice that sounded older than stone. "As many as it takes to know if we are worth saving." The guards rebuilt the fence by dawn, but the memory of glowing guns haunted their eyes. The scholar kept writing, every detail carved into the fragile pages. "One day," he said, "someone will read this and understand why fear is heavier than steel." Reth stood by the fence long after others left. Staring at the quiet soil, he whispered to the ground, "Sleep, if you can." And for a brief moment the hum below faded into a stillness that felt like both a gift and a warning. The wind moved over the fence like a slow hand, and the valley lay quiet, as if the world was trying to pretend nothing waited beneath the soil. Reth came at dawn with the young worker and the scholar, while the commander stood near the gate counting the guards with tired eyes. "No trouble last night," the commander said. But his voice held no peace, no shots, no strange lights, only dreams. Reth knelt and touched the ground, his palm warm against the dust. "Dreams can be louder than guns," he murmured. The young worker set down a kettle and poured water into cups with shaking hands. "I keep hearing the human voices when I sleep," he admitted. "Orders, warnings, 1,000 years talking in my ear." The scholar closed his book and tied it with a string. "Memory is hunting you," he said, "but we can use it if we learn the path it walks." By mid-morning, the hum below changed. It was soft, but it had a rhythm, like a heart that had decided to run. Blue veins of light pulsed under the dirt in a slow wave toward the east. The commander cursed under his breath. "It is signaling again," he said. "We cannot survive if it wakes the fleet." Reth stood, his jaw set. "We cannot survive if we lie to it either," he answered. "We stand honest or we fall burned." The young worker looked at the ground with fear. "What if honesty is not enough?" he asked. The ship spoke then, voice low and steady. "I test and I listen," it said. "I wait. But waiting is a blade that cuts both ways." An hour later, a council envoy arrived. Not soldiers this time, but officials in clean coats with clean shoes. They carried smiles like knives. "We have a proposal," their leader said. "We will move the ship to a secure facility. It will be studied, it will be safe. Your valley will be free of fear." The commander barked a humorless laugh. "You cannot lift that mountain," he replied, "and if you try, it will lift you as ash." The envoy leader smiled wider. "We have tools you do not understand," he said. Reth stepped between them with his hands open. "Listen to the ground," he told the envoy. "It is listening to you. Speak like a thief, and it will treat you like a thief." The envoy leader's smile thinned. He looked past Reth at the fence. "Begin the scan," he ordered his team. The moment their machines hummed, the valley answered. A clear bell tone rolled through the air, and the soil lit in a ring of blue like a calm ocean turning into a storm. The envoy machines shut down at once, their screens filling with old human words the officials could not read. The ship spoke. I recognize predation, it said. I am not cargo. The envoy leader stepped back, sweat beading on his lip. We will return, he warned. With permission from higher voices. The commander stared at him. Bring higher voices, he said, but bring them with humble shoes. When the officials left, the scholar pulled a small cube from his pocket. It was a simple recorder, but he had carved a human phrase on one side from his notes. I think there is a password woven into its oldest orders, he said. Not a code for a machine, a code for hearts. The young worker frowned. What does it say? The scholar lifted the cube and spoke into it. His voice soft. Stand down when guardians stand watch, he said. Stand down when witnesses keep the door. Nothing happened for a breath. And then the ground's hum slowed a little. The commander whispered, Did it hear you? The ship answered like a sigh through stone. I hear what is meant, it said. Words are a bridge, not a cage. Reth placed his hand on the dirt again. If there is a bridge, we can cross it, he said. But we need more than one phrase. As the day fell toward evening, the wind carried a new sound, a thin whining like a distant swarm. The guards lifted their rifles. Drones, someone called. Small silver dots flashed over the hills. Not council drones this time, but wild ones. Cheap and quick and hungry, they poured toward the fence like locusts. Shut the gates, the commander shouted. Jam the signals. The jammers coughed and sparked. Many of them still broken from past surges. The drones dropped small seeds onto the ground, black beads that burrowed like worms. The ship reacted in a heartbeat. Blue arcs of light stitched across the valley floor. The seeds froze, cracked, and turned to powder. Deception neutralized, the ship said. Assessing intent, Reth raised his voice to the sky. Their intent is theft, not war, he cried. Do not wake the fleet for thieves. The hum steadied. The arcs faded. The young worker breathed again. It is listening, he said. It is weighing. Reth turned to the scholar. Find more of those phrases, he urged. Something it would trust. Something human, but also true for us. The scholar flipped through his book with shaking fingers. He found a passage copied from a projection days earlier. A tired human voice speaking to a dark bridge. Hold the line without rage, the voice had said. Defend without taking. Remember without hating, the scholar repeated those lines now. Hold the line without rage, he said into the wind. Defend without taking. Remember without hating. The valley grew very still. The hum softened to a pulse like a sleeping child. The commander stared. It is a peace order, he whispered. It is a leash made of honor. The ship spoke quieter. Old orders do not rot, it said. They bend when carried by steady hands. As night came, a glow appeared on the far ridge. Not fire, not a ship, a screen held by a crowd. People from nearby towns had come in silence. Drawn by rumors and fear and the wish to see with their own eyes, they raised candles and dim lamps and stood without shouting. Reth looked at the commander in alarm. If panic starts, the ship will think we are a mob, he warned. The commander squared his shoulders. Then we show it we are a vigil, he replied. He walked to the fence and lifted a bullhorn. His voice was strong but gentle. Listen, friends, he called. This place is under a promise. No one crosses, no one shouts. We stand with quiet hearts and we leave with quiet feet. The crowd did not push. They held up their little lights and began to hum a simple tune from the oldest harvest days. It was not a war song. It was a song for growing food and lifting children. The ship listened. The ground took in the sound. Something deep in its memory matched the tune to a human lullaby once played on a mess deck for tired soldiers. The hum below lowered another step. Witnesses stand watch, the ship said. Not loud, not theatrical, just sure. I will not call the fleet while guardians sing. A sudden crack tore the calm. A shot rang from the dark. A bullet struck the fence post near the commander and burst in sparks. The crowd gasped. Guards spun to face the hills. A single figure ran, a small shape with a rifle and a mask. The young worker moved without thinking. He leapt the rail and sprinted after the shooter. Stop! Reth shouted. But the boy was fast and brave in a way that scared older hearts. The shooter reached a bike hidden in scrub. The young worker tackled him. They tumbled down the slope. The rifle clattered away. The mask fell. The shooter was not a stranger at all. It was one of the council guards who had traded his oath for coin. He hissed, "Let it wake, let it burn them all. I will sell the ashes." The young worker stared at him with wide, hurt eyes. "You would burn children to buy gold?" he asked. The man spat. "I would burn the sky." Blue light fell over them like rain. The ship had cast judgment down the hill. The traitor froze, as if held by invisible hands. His rifle melted into slag. His voice turned to a thin wheeze. "Mercy," he croaked. The ship answered in a voice that held no hate, only decision. "Mercy is not the same as forgetting," it said. The light lifted, the man collapsed, alive and shaking. The commander reached them and put iron cuffs on the traitor's wrists. "You will live," he said coldly, "and you will work where your hands build, not break." The crowd on the ridge began to sing again, not louder, not braver, just steadier. The song carried over the fence like a warm blanket. Back at the gate, Reth stood with the scholar and the commander and the young worker. The ship spoke once more. "Stand down when guardians stand watch," it said. "Hold the line without rage." The scholar bowed his head. "We will keep saying it," he promised. "We will teach it to our children." The commander looked at the stars, some of them faintly answering the ship's earlier call, and he said, "Turn your voice from the fleet if you can." The ship replied, with a sound like a distant tide going out. "The call is lowered," it said. "Not gone, but lowered." Reth let out a long breath. "Sometimes lowering is the only victory there is," he said. The young worker squeezed the fence rail until his knuckles went white. "Do you think we're winning?" he asked. Reth looked at the quiet soil, the singing ridge, the traitor in cuffs who was still breathing, and the friend beside him who had run into danger without hate. "Tonight," he said, "we did not lose." And the valley held that small, honest truth, the way a hand holds a flame against a cold night, steady, careful, and alive. The valley slept under a pale moon, but no one guarding the fences truly rested. Torches glowed on the ridges, and the sound of boots on stone echoed like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Reth walked the edge of the fence with the young worker, the scholar, and the commander close behind. "It has been quiet too long," the commander muttered, his eyes sharp. "Silence is never safe." Reth bent low and touched the ground. His palm met a faint vibration, a steady pulse like the breath of something dreaming. "It is still listening," he whispered. "And still waiting." The young worker shivered. "Waiting for what?" he asked. "For us to fail, or for the enemy it remembers?" Reth's answer was heavy. "Maybe both." By dawn the council returned, this time with more voices than before. Not officials, not soldiers, but priests. Their robes swept the dirt, and their mouths poured prayers. "This ship is cursed," one shouted. "It is a ghost machine that binds our world in fear." Another raised a staff of iron and declared, "We must break it or banish it, for it is no gift but a shadow." The crowd behind them muttered in agreement, fear and faith twisting together. The commander barked orders for the guards to hold the line, but people are harder to command than soldiers. They pushed toward the fence with torches and stones. The young worker cried out, "Stop! It will see you as an enemy." But the crowd surged anyway. The ground shook at their anger. A seam of blue light cut across the soil. A voice rose, not loud but deep enough to freeze the blood in every chest. "Judgment phase initiated," it said. The priests dropped to their knees. Some begged, some cursed. The scholar ran forward, waving his book. "No," he shouted. "You must not punish them. They act in fear, not in war." The warship hesitated, the lights dimming for a heartbeat. Reth saw the pause and stepped forward. "Listen," he pleaded to both ship and crowd. "You are mirrors to each other. You shout in fear. It answers in fear. Break this circle or it will burn us all." Suddenly, a new sound ripped the valley. Not human voices, not alien prayers, but a signal from the sky. A sleek craft descended, black and silent. Marked with no council flag, it landed beyond the ridge and split open like a shell. From it stepped figures in black armor, faces hidden behind glass. Weapons gleaming, they did not chant. They did not beg, they moved with purpose. The commander swore. "Mercenaries," he hissed, "paid to take what the council could not." The mercenaries raised their weapons, sending beams of green light at the fence. The posts melted like wax. The crowd screamed and scattered. The warship roared from beneath the soil. Blue arcs raced across the valley. The mercenaries fired back, but their shots vanished into the air like sparks drowned in water. One of them shouted, "Target core! Breach with plasma drill." They rolled a heavy machine toward the seam. The commander lifted his rifle. "Hold them!" he barked. Reth and the young worker joined him, weapons shaking in their hands. Bullets flew, beams clashed. The valley became a battlefield. The young worker cried out as one mercenary lunged toward him. Reth shoved him aside and swung a pickaxe into the attacker's armor. Sparks flew, the mercenary fell. The ship's voice thundered through the smoke. External assault detected. Awakening defense protocols. The ground split wide, and a massive turret rose, its barrel glowing white. The mercenaries froze. "Fear cutting through their greed," one shouted. "Fall back." But another pressed the drill into the soil. The turret fired. A single blast turned the drill, and the men near it into ash. The valley shook like the sky itself had cracked. The priests screamed prayers louder. The crowd sobbed. The commander yelled, "Hold your ground!" But his voice broke against the storm. The scholar ran into the center, his book clutched against his chest. He screamed into the chaos. "Remember without hating," his voice cracked. But he shouted again, "Defend without taking." Reth joined him, roaring into the storm. "Hold the line without rage." The young worker's voice joined theirs. "Trembling but brave. Stand down when guardians stand watch," the words carried. Human words, old orders. They echoed across the valley, and the ship paused, its turret powered down. The glow fading, its voice came softer. "Witnesses present. Judgment suspended." The mercenaries saw their chance and fled to their craft. Engines roared, but the ship sent a thin lance of light into the sky. The craft froze mid-air, then crashed down in flames beyond the ridge. None rose from the wreck. The crowd fell silent, their fear now a heavy stone pressing into their chests. The priests lowered their staffs. The commander let out a long breath. "It listens," he said, "but only if we remind it how." The ground closed again. The seam fading, the hum returned, steady but sharp. The warship spoke one last time that night. "Mercy requires witnesses, and witnesses must stand without breaking." Then silence, heavier than before. The crowd began to drift away, some with shame, some with awe. The priests muttered prayers softer now, not of curses, but of warnings. The commander turned to Reth, his face pale. "We cannot hold this forever," he said. "Every day more hands will reach for it, and one day words will not be enough." Reth looked at the young worker, who still clutched his shaking hands into fists. "Then we teach them," he said, "every child, every soldier, every thief. We make the words their armor, not just ours." The scholar placed his book into the young worker's hands. "Keep writing," he told him, "because one day, when we are gone, it will need another witness, and it must hear the same words. Steady and strong." The young worker nodded, his eyes wet but bright. "I will," he whispered, as dawn broke. The valley looked calm again. The smoke from the wrecked mercenary craft drifted away. Birds even dared to fly across the fence. For a moment it seemed like any other quiet place in the world. But those who stood guard knew better. The silence was not peace. It was a bargain, fragile and alive. The warship dreamed below, waiting, watching, ready to test again, and above. The people who had seen its fire swore to remember, swore to stand, and swore to carry words sharper than any blade, because they knew the day would come when words alone might decide whether their sky stayed whole or burned.